Okay,
Right.
it looks like it's official then. All right, welcome everybody. It's 1 o'clock p.m., September 16th, 2025. I'm Phil Albrecht's hearing examiner for the city of Lacey, holding a hearing this afternoon on applications for a wetland development permit and reasonable use exception. The hearing format is we'll start off the presentation from staff. And Ms. Barks, is that going to be you, or are you going to be giving us the overview today?
I am, yes.
All right, great. So once Ms. Barks is done making her presentation, then the applicants can chime in if they want. I believe that's the Wisemans. You don't have to, but if you want to say something, that you certainly have a chance to do that. After that, we'll move on to public comments if we have any public today. And Ms. Barks, can you tell, do we have any members of the public participating this afternoon?
Not at this time, I don't think, no.
Not too surprising. It didn't look like anybody was too excited about this request.
Yeah.
After public comments, we'll go back to Ms. Barks to answer any questions that were asked and give her a chance to complete the record with any rebuttal evidence she finds necessary. And then the Wisemans, you have final opportunity to present evidence and closing comments, and I get 10 business days. That's a couple weeks to issue a final decision. So not too complicated. Now, by state law, I'm only allowed to consider evidence that's put in the record today. I don't get to talk to staff, Ms. Barks, or anybody else about the project. All the information I get and that I base the decision upon is information that's put into the hearing today. And a big important part of that is Ms. Barks' staff report and the exhibits she listed in support of her recommendation for approval. I'm going to share my screen real quick here. Let's see, I believe that's it. Yeah, it should be. Hopefully, if I got the right window up there, this should be Ms. Barnes' staff report. I think it's the second page. Yeah. And those are all the exhibits, the documents she used to analyze the project. See, do I have the right, do you see that? Do I have the right screen? Is it the exhibit list?
Yes.
Okay. Couldn't tell from my computer. But we have the land use application, the wetland development application, the site plan, critical areas report, arborist report, the notices, and then some staff comments done in the review. So at this point, just want to ask if anyone needs to see any of those documents or has any objection to their entry in the record. If you do, just click on the raise hand button at the bottom of your screen, or if you're in the meeting room, just wave your hands. Not seeing any takers, so I'll go ahead and admit exhibits 1 through 7. So with that, Ms. Barks, let's transfer to you. Let me swear you in first. Just raise your right hand. Do you swear or affirm to tell the truth, nothing but the truth in this proceeding?
I do.
Okay, great. Go ahead.
Okay, I have a presentation. Let me go ahead and share my screen. I'm not exactly sure where it went. Apologies.
Looking for the share screen button?
I found the share screen button. When I pull that up, it does not give me the option to connect my PowerPoint slide.
Yeah, sometimes it takes the administrator has to allow that, I guess. For some reason, I was allowed to do it, but
Apologies, guys.
You should have permission.
there we go. Okay, we got it.
I got it. Sorry about that. Okay. So my name is Sarah Bartz, and I'm a planner here at the city, and we are going to do a little overview of the Wiseman Wetland Permit. That was project number 250103 in our system. Okay, project background. The applicants are requesting approval of a wetland development permit with a reasonable use exception to construct an approximately 1,600 square foot single-story, single-family residence on the western portion of an approximately half an acre undeveloped parcel. The proposed structure will be located outside of the delineated on-site Category 2 wetland, but within the regulated 100-foot wetland buffer. To minimize development impacts, the structure will be placed as close as possible to the western property line and 33rd Avenue Southeast. This placement includes a reduction of the front yard setback from the required 16-foot setback in the low density zone to 10 feet. The garage will meet the required 20-foot setback, and the western side yard will be increased from the standard 5 foot to 10. A fence will be installed along the wetland edge to provide a physical barrier and to separate residential activities from the sensitive area. This will mitigate the unavoidable buffer encroachment. So as we can see here on the site plan, just a visual of everything I noted, with the house pushed up as much as possible into the corner. And then it's a little hard to see, but you can see edge of wetland on this site plan along with the proposed fence, which comes directly off of 33rd and then kind of wraps along the actual edge of the wetland. Elements to consider. Hicks Lake is located north of the roadway with a single family residence situated between the lake, the road, and the subject property. The 200-foot shoreline jurisdiction does not extend onto the property. Just to note, some of our GIS maps show that it does. However, those are not accurate. What I'm using is the surveyed 200-foot shoreline jurisdiction boundary, which does not go onto the property. The project was exempt from SEPA. This project unavoidably takes place in the 100-foot wetland buffer of Wetland A, which I stated before is a Category 2 wetland. There's no direct impacts to the wetland area itself. A permanent fence will be installed along the wetland's edge. And at this time, I did not receive any formal public comments. I did receive a few inquiries just asking about some of our standards, but they weren't actual comments on this development. Some visuals of what I just mentioned. The zoning map here is taken from the city's website and shows the orange there is the shoreline jurisdiction. As I said, that's just an estimate. On the right-hand side where I've highlighted here, you can see the actual surveyed shoreline boundary, just to confirm that it's outside of it. This is a current aerial of the site. This grass area here is where the house will be set. Just an overview of the critical areas report. The applicant submitted a critical areas report prepared by West Fork Environmental dated April 7th, 2025, to evaluate the presence of critical areas within and adjacent to the project area. There were 2 wetlands in the vicinity of the project. One was on site, one was off. Wetland A, which is the one we've been talking about, is a Category 2 that had a habitat score of 4. It's located on the property and its buffer is unavoidable. Something else to note is that this property the property adjacent has a existing private driveway that bisects the wetland already, and that's located to the east on the site plan. Based on our code, a Category 2 wetland with the habitat score of 4 requires a 100-foot buffer. Wetland B is a Category 1 wetland. That one is off-site and does not affect the wetland itself or its buffer does not affect our site. And then I note here at the bottom, the proposed project is located entirely within the standard buffer for Wetland A. No work is proposed within any of the identified wetlands, the buffer, or shoreline jurisdiction of Hicks Lake. Here's some more visuals of everything I just went over. So you can see here, this first one, they're both exhibits from the critical areas report, but this one is kind of showing where Wetland B is off-site. This is where Wetland A, the boundary is, which we saw on the site plan and correlates exactly with where the fence will be. And then over here, the one that includes an aerial, you can kind of see where that driveway is already existing right through the middle of the wetland. Just to go over reasonable use directly from our code, LMC 1428-350 allows for limited development within critical areas or their buffers when strict application of the standards would deny all reasonable use of the property. In this case, due to the location and size of Wetland A and its associated buffer, compliance with the standard buffer would preclude any reasonable use of the lot for residential development. A primary use allowed in the underlining zoning, which is LD, is a single-family home. For minimizing impacts, no direct impacts to the wetland area or the habitat are proposed. As I stated before, we have an unavoidable buffer encroachment on this site. What we're proposing to do to mitigate is require the permanent fence along the wetland edge, and then also during construction, silt fencing, stuff like that. Site drainage will be managed through appropriate designed stormwater facilities that are applicable to single family residences and consistent with city standards. The area proposed for development consists of a maintained lawn and does not have any native vegetation that needs to be cleared. So there's no worry about that. The building footprint has been minimized to reduce the buffer disturbance, and a reduced front yard setback along 33rd will pull the house up as far as possible away from that wetland and further avoid encroachment. That is the conclusion of my presentation, and based on that analysis, we recommend approval of the wetland development permit. The applicant will have to proceed with standard building permit design review for single family home. And then my conditions are included in my staff report.
Okay, sounds good. Just a couple questions. One, usually even when someone proposes, to build a house in a degraded portion of a wetland like a lawn or something, the critical areas report still recommends, buffer enhancement or something to mitigate for the impact. And I know your staff report, referenced that compensatory mitigation isn't required usually. But I mean, looking at the standard, it says only when no adverse impacts to regulated wetlands are created by the proposal. And I looked over the critical areas report and it never really made that conclusion. It said that there's no direct impacts to the wetland, and it talked about, that the impacts to the various functions of the wetlands were fairly minimal, but there was no overall conclusion that no adverse impacts would be created, at least as far as I could find. Did you come to that conclusion from the critical areas report, or where did you get that information?
Yes, we, based on the location, just the way the property is arranged and the upland area, I think this has actually been filled before as well. Heidi, if I don't know if you want to, yeah.
Okay, yes, you can, when we get to applicant comments, you can respond too. I just was curious to get the staff, position on that. Because like I said, I just didn't see any definitive conclusion in the report that there were no adverse impacts to the wetland. So I didn't know if I missed something or whether staff just made that conclusion from all the information it had.
Yeah, we just made the conclusion from all the information we have, and just like the driveway already bisecting it and the state of the wetland and
Okay.
just the single family use.
And then the reasonable use criteria is it's pretty common to all of them, it requires that you minimize the impacts as much as possible. And one of the factors involved in that analysis is whether you've got a minimum, building footprint, basically minimum encroachment. And that's kind of it's hard to tell, what a minimum footprint is. Usually in the absence of anything else, you look to the surrounding home sizes to see if the home that's being requested is comparable in size or hopefully smaller. I mean, do you know about surrounding home sizes and how it compares to what's being proposed here?
Yeah, it's quite a bit smaller, and it's smaller. When we originally started discussing this project, there was some bigger house plans looked at or other variations. So this is the smallest, with still having a good building layout.
Yeah. I mean, 1,600 feet just on its face isn't very large. And is it a one-story or a two-story? Do you know, or have they made that decision?
Single story.
Yeah. Okay, yeah, that's pretty nominal.
I would say the houses across the street are not huge, but they're definitely bigger.
Okay, good, perfect. Thanks, Ms. Sparks. Appreciate your input. So let's move on to the Wisemans. Did you want to add anything? I'll have to swear you in if you do, but that's not
yeah, I have a comment. Sure.
Okay, let me swear you in. Do you swear firm, tell the truth, nothing but the truth in this proceeding?
I do.
Okay, great. Go ahead, Mr. Wiseman.
Okay, I just like to document that this is a seasonal wetland. It dries up in the summertime. So you may not be aware of that. That's what occurs there. It's like a drainage swale.
Oh, I see.
On the corner of that. Yeah.
Okay, well, that's good to know. Thanks, Mr. Wiseman. Appreciate it. Now, Ms. Barnett, since you're here, maybe like I said, I couldn't find an overall conclusion there'd be no impact to the wetland. I mean, you wrote the report, right? Can you clarify that for me? And let me swear in. Just raise your right hand. You swear firm, tell the truth, nothing but the truth in this proceeding.
I do.
Okay, great. Go ahead.
Yeah. We based our conclusion on no impacts to the wetland in that the proposed house is well outside of the wetland as best it can be on that lot. So there are no direct effects to the wetland, and we've tried to minimize any effects to the buffer by separating the residential use through the use of a fence there and protecting all the vegetation that is on site. I think there is a forester that went and looked at the trees on site. There's a couple of nice Douglas fir that will be protected, and
well, I guess what I'm looking from you is just the conclusion. There's not going to be an impact to the wetland. You said no direct impacts, but a
Right.
buffer, of course, is designed to protect the wetland. So if you damage the buffer, you indirectly damage the wetland. So I just need you to say, there's no impact to the wetland.
we do not think there will be an impact.
Okay, got it. That's just what I do. The magic words. Great. Thank you very much. Appreciate that. All right. Well, let's move on to public comments. Anybody out there? And I said, Ms. Sparks, it looks like there are no members of the public. Is that right?
One of my colleagues is in the room and she can confirm that.
Okay.
There's no one from the public here.
Okay, that makes it easy. All right, Ms. Sparks, do you need to make any final comments?
No, I can't.
Okay.
I don't have anything else.
And I take the Wisemans, there's nothing to comment on at this point, so it looks like we're good. So I'll go ahead and close the hearing, and it looks like a pretty straightforward approval. So should have no problems approving it. We'll get that out in the next couple of weeks. So at least you're pretty close to the end of this long process, and you can move on to the building permit stage. So thanks all for participating. Have a great afternoon, and we'll see you next time for city staff. Bye.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye, guys.